Hi, everyone. Okay, in this question, we read that Sakura leaves home and travels at a steady speed of 100 kilometers for an hour, okay? Slows down to 80 kilometers an hour for half an hour, okay? And they say give the reason for that due to construction. Then continues at 110 kilometers an hour for another hour, okay? She stops for a 2-hour meeting. There's another time issue there. And then she returns home at a steady rate of 100 kilometers per hour. Now we're going to graph each scenario here. It's an important skill to be able to translate between information given to us in word form and then give it to, represent it in a more of a mathematical way on the graph here, okay? Now, look at the first one here, distance traveled versus time. Okay, distance traveled. Well, at 100 kilometers an hour, okay, let's say 100 kilometers an hour looks like this, and we'll give this for about an hour, let's just say. Then we're told that they travel that she travels 80 kilometers an hour. Now that's you're not covering quite as much distance in that span of time there. So what happens is we're not going to go. It's not going to increase it quite so much here. It's only going to go for half an hour. So this will be like 1.5 hours. Okay. Actually, you know what? That's not as clear as I would like it to be. Let's try that again. Let's try that again here. So let's say this is relatively steep here for an hour, and then it's not quite as steep for a half an hour, so this is 1.5 hours. Then it's again steep, what do they say, for another hour, so, and actually this is even steeper than the original than that original line segment that I drew here, so this is going to actually be even worse. Then we're stationary for 2 hours. Oh, and then, I'm sorry, this is distance traveled versus time. Oh, I have not given myself nearly enough room. So I got to rethink how that's going to work here, because distance traveled is just going to keep going up and up and up. So what I've done there didn't make any sense. So let's do this again, but we'll do this a little bit on a smaller scale here. So first of all, 100 kilometers an hour for, let's say, an hour. So here's my hour mark. Then we go 80, and I want to make sure this is very distinct, that the rate at which the distance goes up is quite small. Then it's going to go up, okay, at 110, and that should be even a little steeper than my original one. Now we're going to hit a mark here where we sit for 2 hours. That's the meeting. Okay, so here's 1 hour, here was the 1.5 hours. And then we had another, this ended up, an hour later would be 2.5 hours. Sorry, then we go for 2 more hours, so it's going to be 4.5 hours. And then we come home, and she comes home at 100 kilometers an hour. Okay, and then it's going to take, you don't even suggest how long that takes here. But this is sort of what the graph would look like. Steep graph, not quite so steep. It should be steeper here. My graph probably doesn't deliver that. No change in distance, and then further distance traveled. Now, when you talk about this, compare this to distance traveled from home, okay, the graph is going to look very similar to this one, but this part's going to be different because in this section right here, she's coming back home. So the distance from home is going to decrease here. So this is going to look very similar. It's going to go up, not quite so steep, little steeper, there for a couple hours, and then all of a sudden this thing's going to drop back down fairly steep. Okay, now that's those two scenarios there. This is again distance traveled versus distance from home. Okay, now if we come over here, take a look at this is now speed versus time. Okay, well, speed versus time is a little different. What's going to happen here is we are starting off here now. I mean, you can argue that there's going to be this quick little jump here, but we're talking in extremes here. So this is going to be at 100 for an hour, and then it's going to drop down really quickly to 80 for half an hour, up to 110 for an hour, and then it drops down and she's at the meeting. And so then that's going to stay 0 for 2 hours, and then there's a jump back up to 100, and then that goes until she gets home, and then whenever she gets home, we're back down to 0. Okay. So there's a few different ways, at least 3 different ways of viewing the same scenario here and drawing out a graph to represent that information.